There are no confirmed cases of the virus in Oregon, but we did wonder how many people are being monitored for coronavirus. And when KGW's Pat Doris asked, he found a surprising answer. Pat?
Right, Laurel. It was basically, that's none of your business. It was the same answer that Lars Larson got when he put the question to the Oregon Health Authority before we did. And it still makes no sense. The Oregon Health Authority spokesman told me there's a lot of stigma connected to the virus right now, and keeping the number of people monitored secret is to, quote, protect their privacy and the integrity of the outbreak investigation. He also cited an Oregon state law, ORS 433.008, which reads that any information obtained by OHA or a public health authority in the course of an investigation of a reportable disease or disease outbreak is confidential. Which is why we are not asking for names or addresses. But the entire number of people being monitored? How can that be confidential? And by the way, the state of Washington does not feel it's confidential. They post their number on a public website. And in California, the Department of Health reports 1,000 people are being monitored in LA County. And the California Department of Public Health told me this afternoon that 7,600 people statewide are self-monitoring. Finally, Knute Buehler, a leading Republican in Oregon who is now running for Congress and happens to be a medical doctor, issued a statement on this saying, quote, in times of serious disease outbreaks where lives are at stake, government health officials must go the extra mile to share information with the public. He went on to say, unfortunately, our state government does not have a culture of transparency. Now is not the time to be holding information back. It not only breeds distrust, it could cost lives. We'll keep asking the question, and we'll let you know if we finally do get an answer.